We've talked about how after trauma, the nervous system becomes dysregulated. That's the fancy term for it, meaning that we lose control of our emotions. Sometimes they're too much, too overwhelming, too intense. We become impulsive. We do things that we regret doing afterwards. Or it's like the nervous system tanks. It goes into the no feeling zone, the no energy zone. And our ability to feel what I'll call ordinary, regular feelings just seems to be lost. The good news is the ability to feel regular feelings is never lost. But when the nervous system is traumatized, everything's too big or we can't feel it at all. So one of the tips that I can offer to trauma survivors is to teach them the language of the body. Because even though the emotions get too intense or they just drop off altogether, and because our thoughts connected to trauma can be very negative and distorted, it leaves the body as a reliable source of information. Even if the body is saying, danger, danger, red alert. So we might get triggered and suddenly feel the heart rate speeding up. And if we notice it as just a body reaction, just a body sensation, it's not scary. If we feel the heart going and we go, uh-oh, I'm in danger, we're going to be more scared because there's a thought. And that thought, I'm in danger, makes the heart beat faster. So often, if we can learn the skill of putting aside the thoughts that make the feelings and the body more in a traumatic reaction, and we can just notice, oh, I can feel my body bracing. Isn't that interesting? I can feel my heart speeding up. I can feel a kind of vibration inside. And, or I can feel a kind of weakness in all my extremities, like I'm just gonna collapse in a heap on the floor. And if we notice those as just body reactions or just body memory, then it's not scary. And we're not in the past because we're saying, right this moment, I'm noticing my heart beating really, really fast, or I'm noticing my chest is tight, or I'm noticing this kind of floppy, energyless feeling in my arms and legs. And that's a here and now observation. So here we're speaking the language of the body, which is neutral, right? That's the beautiful thing. The thoughts are negative, they're not neutral. The feelings are either overwhelming or they're out to lunch somewhere. And those are certainly not neutral, either of those extremes. But the body is a reliable, solid source of good information. Even the word body is very, very triggering for many trauma survivors. And I appreciate that. Even as I'm speaking to you, I'm thinking, oh, I hope I'm not triggering people by using what I call the B word. But I think it's so important to learn to at least speak a little of that language. And often you could start to notice, you can experiment with this yourself. Often it's the word body that's triggering. The word hand isn't triggering, the word arm isn't triggering, ear is not triggering, head is not triggering. Even tightness in the chest or the beating of the heart, that isn't triggering. It's just that B word. So see what happens if you begin to be curious about the language of the body, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed by your emotions, attacked by your thoughts, or you feel so disconnected that sometimes it's a relief, but sometimes it makes you feel estranged from others. You know, we often don't appreciate that it's as hard to have no feelings as to have too many feelings. And that the feeling of not feeling, the feeling of being disconnected from ourselves is also a negative state. So often it's interesting even to notice what's my body or what's my being doing? How's it pulling off this not feeling state? Is it a feeling of being disembodied, of watching ourselves go through the motions? Or is it more like I can feel my feet on the ground, but emotionally I'm just numb? And we could do the same thing when emotions are too much, or as often happens to trauma survivors, vulnerable emotions like tears are associated with shame and or fear. Very sadly, you know, when individuals grow up in families where crying is met with humiliation or with, I'll give you something to cry about, even a little tearing in the eyes can be associated with shame and fear. And how sad that is. But you know, if we notice that vulnerable, tearful feeling as just body sensation, I can feel the wetness behind my eyes. I can feel a tear on my cheek. I feel a lump in my throat. That doesn't evoke the shame. It doesn't evoke the fear, I'm gonna cry. And just notice that whatever emotion you might have difficulty with. You know, many trauma survivors have difficulty with anger. It's associated with violence, with destructiveness. And they say, no, I don't get angry. I don't want to get angry. So keep that anger away from me. So when anger comes up for them, which it will, because as much as tears are a natural human emotion, so is anger, I ask them to notice the anger, what they call anger, as a body response. And I say, does it feel more like energy? Does it feel like strength? Or does the anger want to do something? And most of the time, people say, it's like energy. It's like this big wave of energy. And I say, notice that energy. And just notice, does the feeling of energy feel good or bad? And often they say, well, anger's bad. And I said, I don't mean anger. I mean the energy. Does the energy feel good or bad? And they notice that feeling of energy. And and they say, well, actually, the energy feels good. I still don't like anger, but the energy feels good. Because that's what anger is useful for. It gives the body energy. Even talking about it, I can feel myself sitting up straighter, because that's what anger does for us. It gives us energy. It straightens the spine. It makes us feel like we can stand our ground. It isn't meant to be explosive or harmful. It's meant to give us the energy and strength in the face of what's scary or what's challenging. So this practicing of noticing the emotions that are frightening for us as just body sensation, noticing the impact of thoughts, negative, if you notice the physical impact of a negative thought, and I do this when I speak to audiences, I demonstrate on myself, and I say, okay, I'm going to say the words, I'm worthless. And even though I don't believe them, when I say the words, I'm worthless, I can feel a weight on my chest. I can feel a kind of heaviness come over my body. And, almost like a defeated feeling. So when we notice, instead of noticing the thought and saying, oh my God, am I really worthless? Instead, I encourage people to notice the physical impact of the thought without judging it, without drawing any conclusions from it. Because if we notice it as just a heavy feeling, that's neither good nor bad. It doesn't prove the thought. It doesn't disprove it. It's just a heavy feeling in the body. So imagine if you didn't have to judge your thoughts, your feelings, because you're just noticing them as different types of body responses, different types of body sensation. And you don't have to use the word body if it's triggering, right? We can just forget the B word and we can say, when you say those words, do you feel lighter or heavier? When you notice that sadness as body sensations, does it feel more tolerable or intolerable? And sensation by sensation, each feeling and thought feels more bearable. And through that process of noticing the negative thoughts and the negative feelings as just a sensation, just a tightening, a loosening, a heaviness, a lightness, we begin to build a better window of tolerance, a wider, more expansive window of tolerance, meaning we can tolerate our own feelings, our own thoughts, our own day-to-day experience in a more relaxed way, not as something painful that we have to struggle with, but as just a sensation, just a tension, just a movement or gesture.